Welcome to the Eversio Experience Podcast. I'm Brandi, the co-founder here at Eversio Wellness, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Desiree Caruso, naturopathic physician.
Mushrooms are symbols of interconnectedness, and we're so excited to connect you with the health, wellness, and wisdom that they have brought us on our journey to this moment. We believe mushrooms are critical to the maintenance of our physical well-being and our collective mental health.
Yes, our ancestors had deep cultural connections to mushrooms, but today they remain understudied, undervalued, and often misunderstood by much of modern society, and we are here to change that. Eversio means change, and it's our mission to change lives through fungi.
There's a mushroom for every moment.
And we're so glad that you're here to share this moment with us. And now, let's dive into the episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to a mushroom masterclass with Brandi, the co-founder of Eversio Wellness, and myself, Dr. Desiree Caruso, naturopathic physician. Today's masterclass is on the fungal network within, how mushroom polysaccharides engineer a healthier gut microbiome. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into the prebiotic power of edible fungi and their role in metabolic health, which is crucial. It's a foundational health marker.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Desiree. I'm excited for this one. We're going to get really nerdy here. And if you are listening to this episode and you can't see us, you're going to miss out because we have a beautiful presentation we're sharing along. So come and listen to this one over on YouTube if you're not already there and enjoy the show. If you are listening to it, if you're driving, of course, we don't want you watching. We're going to do our best to describe the beautiful diagrams and illustrations we've created for you along the way because so many of us are visual learners, and we're really hoping that this masterclass is going to get you down to the real nitty-gritty of why your mushroom supplements are working so well for you, particularly when it comes to the gut. So if you are watching, enjoy. If you're not, come back and watch it again later so you can see everything. So I have to start where my mushroom heart always wants to begin, and that is with the ancient world. And to remind you that fungi have been around for much longer than us. And some people believe that they have been around for millions of years. And we see this when we look at history, when we look at carvings, when we look at stone structures in museums, in all kinds of ancient records. And we see mushrooms right there in the carvings of people that didn't even have a language to speak to describe them. And then we get Hippocrates, the Greek physician, coming along in 440 BC and saying this: "Let food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be food." And of course, I always tell you, I think he was talking about mushrooms. They are medicine to us, and they are also food, and we should think of them as both. So since our distant ancestors lived in constant contact with fungi, we know this. It should be no surprise to us that over time, the human body has evolved ways to recognize them, developing receptors throughout our body that help us detect fungi and benefit from them. And that leads us to current science. So all the way from ancient times to, I literally looked this up today. If you go to PubMed and do a quick search for medicinal mushrooms in the search bar, today it revealed 7,875 papers on medicinal mushrooms. So again, if you have a healthcare practitioner that's telling you, "I'm not sure about mushrooms and using them for wellness," because there's no research, you can tell them they're wrong. And that all they have to do is a quick search to show that we now have over 40 clinical trial-supported indications referenced in over 7,000 papers on medicinal mushrooms. Literally everything from allergies and anxiety all the way down to sleep disorders and everything in between. So this is no longer up for discussion. This is good science. We have good clinical research. And when I looked today, it's so heartening for me to see that here in 2026, that bar is just getting higher on the number of studies we're still doing. So if you're wondering if mushrooms are still trendy, yeah, they're trendy. You're going to see them in art and in music. And thank you, Chanel, for making them the superstar of the spring-summer fashion collection that was just announced last week. We still see mushrooms everywhere as part of our culture. We definitely see them more often in our food. I was served maitake at a restaurant just the other night, and they are going to become more and more of our medicine. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to you, Dr. Desiree, to tell us how we can use them for what everybody's talking about, the root of all our health, our gut health.
Yeah, mushrooms can definitely help you on your gut healing journey. So let's dive into the details of that. We've all heard about the gut microbiome. Okay, so the gut microbiota, it is our hidden metabolic organ. We know that the human gut is a dynamic ecosystem because it can host 10 to 100 trillion microbial cells. It's an entity that is so influential, it's considered a hidden metabolic organ because of how it impacts us and our health. And this complex community is really fundamental to human well-being, maintaining energy balance, preserving the gut barrier, and even influencing the nervous system, because this is how we nourish ourselves. This is how we feed ourselves and bring us nourishment, and that impacts all systems in the body. So what does our gut do for us? The gut is involved with immune system development. So it's really shaping and training our immune responses, because that immune response, those immune cells are in the gut. And that's important to know if we have any sort of gut barrier dysfunction, because that can get past that first system, line of defense. It's pathogen resistant. So like I said, it can protect against harmful invaders with the enzymes that we have and all of the things that we have within our gut. And host metabolism. So it's synthesizing essential vitamins, and it's breaking down non-digestible dietary components like polysaccharides and polyphenols, which we know come from plants, and polysaccharides specific to functional mushrooms. And we'll talk about mushroom polysaccharides in particular. So what affects our gut? That's something that we need to know. There are intrinsic factors to us that belong to us, and there are extrinsic factors or external factors that we can think of. So intrinsic to us are age, our ethnicity, and our genetics. These are things that can just naturally impact us. But then there are extrinsic factors or external factors like diet, what we eat and put into our body to feed our gut microbiome, exercise, the geography and where we live, stress versus no stress, so the level of stress, and then antibiotics, so what can wipe it out or encourage a microbiome particular to a level of health. So when balance is lost, we can enter into this dysbiosis realm, and that's where the rise of metabolic disease can happen. Now, you might be wondering, what is dysbiosis? Because it's a buzzword that's used in gut health and wellness, and it's really a disruption of the gut's microbial equilibrium. It's strongly linked to a range of gastrointestinal illnesses and increasingly to metabolic disorders like obesity and type 2 diabetes. So you might have never heard the term eubiosis before, but you might recognize the first half of this word with eustress. We've heard of stress, that there's stress that is bad for us, but then there's eustress, which is stress that, doesn't impact anything. And it is actually good stress. It's a good workout for our nervous system. Eubiosis is when your gut bacteria and other microbes like fungi and viruses are in a stable, diverse, well-functioning ecosystem. And they're supporting things like digestion, immune function, nutrient absorption, very important, inflammation balance, mood and brain health. And when we look at dysbiosis, when there's a higher level of dysbiosis, this is where metabolic disease comes in. And we can think of type 2 diabetes, because type 2 diabetes is something that's influenced by lifestyle. It's not type 1 diabetes, which is considered an autoimmune condition. Type 2 diabetes is influenced, and it can be influenced by our genetics, but really by lifestyle factors and food. So in type 2 diabetes patients, the gut microbiota shows reduced richness and diversity, and an increase in pathogenic microbes, as well as a decrease in beneficial butyrate-producing bacteria, which we will get into. But this inciting factor here really is that evidence shows that a diet that is rich in fat is a primary driver of this disruption, initiating a cascade of low-grade inflammation that underpins metabolic disease.
Wow. And I think so much of what we hear connected to disease is connected to inflammation. So we hear about gut health being the root of so much, and we hear about inflammation being what we experience because of that. So I love this diagram that helps us understand the inflammatory cascade. We're going from the leaky gut to insulin resistance, part of metabolic disease. And it all starts with what you just explained. We have the breach. And if you're not watching this, I love that it's showing us a burger and fries. This is the breach of the system. This dysbiosis damages the integrity of the gut's epithelial wall. This is where it starts. And then we can see this is what's creating this gap, this leak in the system. And that's why it's called leaky gut. There's literally a break in the barrier there. So this increased what we would call intestinal permeability, another way to say leaky gut, allows bacterial endotoxins like LPS. So these are lipopolysaccharides. And if you are a podcast listener and you listen to health and wellness podcasts, lipopolysaccharides are in the spotlight right now. So many gastroenterologists, professionals in the space, looking at these being the real villain. And if we can monitor the level, reduce the level of these lipopolysaccharides, we are on our way to better health no matter what. So when the intestinal permeability allows these lipopolysaccharides to translocate into the bloodstream, we are well into this cascade. So we get metabolic endotoxemia. So this is the condition where blood now contains abnormally high levels of lipopolysaccharides. And this is what triggers a chronic, low-grade inflammatory response that we often experience as all kinds of autoimmune condition, all kinds of symptoms in the body. So this is the beginning of this systemic inflammation, and we get an increase in all of these inflammatory cytokines. This is where tumor necrosis factor, IL-6, we see these all sitting in the receptors causing our body to create inflammation when we don't really need it to do that. And the final outcome, we get activation of the TLR4 pathway, which unleashes a pro-inflammatory cascade, a storm on us. And this is known as the leading cause of tissue-specific insulin resistance and the development of this type 2 diabetes Dr. Desiree talked about. So we go from that beginning leaky gut all the way to insulin resistance, and we can understand it makes sense. The science makes sense when we look at it like this. So where do mushrooms come in then? How is it that mushrooms are helping in this process? Where do they enter the picture? Well, they are a unique class of prebiotic polysaccharides. So we hear about probiotics, the good bacteria in the gut, and so many people will be taking a probiotic. But the truth is, you were born with a community of healthy microbes, and you have been feeding them your whole life, whether you knew it or not. Every time you eat plants and fungi, they are the food for your healthy gut microbes, and prebiotic is just a word for that. They are food for the good bacteria in your gut. Mushroom polysaccharides specifically come from mushrooms that we eat, that we put into the gut. So edible mushrooms are a rich source of bioactive macromolecules called polysaccharides. These compounds function as powerful prebiotics, selectively fueling beneficial microbes in the gut. So mushroom polysaccharides are structurally distinct from plant polysaccharides, and that's why you will hear doctors often talking, gut health doctors, about diversity. It's not just about eating healthy. It's about eating lots of healthy things. So even if you believe spinach is the most healthy thing for you, if you only eat that, you're only feeding the microbes that love that spinach. What about the microbes that love pineapple, and the mushrooms that love cashews, and the mushrooms that love quinoa, the microbes that love quinoa, the microbes that like something that you're not feeding it is going to make them depleted in your system. So if we want all of our good microbes, our healthy microbes in the gut to be happy, we have to really eat a large diversity of plants and fungi. And I think that we hear a large diversity of plants so often. So many of us know that if we're getting about 30 different plants over the course of a week, we're doing a good job to feed a healthy gut. But we are getting a really different composition of polysaccharide when we're eating fungal polysaccharides. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today and make it make sense. So we are always looking at our products for beta-glucans. These are complex polymers that our own digestive enzymes can't break down. And people think, oh, they can't break them down. That's no good. No, we love that they can't break them down because it means that they are lasting through to the colon or the large intestine. So because they resist digestion, mushroom polysaccharides arrive in the colon largely intact. And this is where they become a specific and potent food source for the vast microbial community that's just waiting there for the mushroom party to happen when they arrive.
Okay, so let's look at let's look at a spotlight on beta glucans and talk about the molecular blueprint of bioactivity. So with beta glucans, they're the most promising mushroom polysaccharides, specifically beta D-glucans, you might have heard us say. And it's because their specific glycosidic bonds and spatial structure make them potent biological response modifiers. They're stimulating immune cells like phagocytes and T cells. So structure will dictate function. We look at these 1,6 branches, 1,3 branches. That's the linked main chain. But bioactivity, here's the main point. Bioactivity is directly linked to molecular structure. So here are some key properties. Monosaccharide composition, so often heteropolysaccharides rich in fucose, galactose, mannose, and xylose. We're looking at the glycosidic linkage, so the beta configuration is crucial for their biological effects. And molecular weight, we talk about this in our podcast a lot too. These higher molecular weight polysaccharides, so greater than 90 kilodalton, are associated with superior bioactivity, these higher molecular weights. And then we look at the triple helix advantage, which is something you might not have heard of before. So only polysaccharides with a sufficiently high molecular weight can form a stable triple helix configuration, which is a conformation that appears to enhance their anti-cancer and immunomodulatory efficacy. And keep in mind, our DNA is a triple helix. Okay, what about the alchemy of this? How do gut bacteria unlock mushroom power? Like, how is this actually related? Let's talk about the mechanism of action. So we know that starting from the left here, mushroom polysaccharides. Oh, okay. So we know here, starting from the left, mushroom polysaccharides, they are a feast for microbes. So the gut microbiota possesses a vast arsenal of carbohydrate active enzymes that humans lack, over 260 compared to our 17. So they're able to digest with their enzymes these mushroom polysaccharides, and we can think of them as specialists. So this one particular phylum, Bacteroidetes, is particularly well equipped. They utilize specialized gene clusters called the polysaccharide utilization loci to bind, transport, and degrade complex glycans like mushroom polysaccharides. So what does this mean? Particular phylums that are associated with a healthy microbiome can actually degrade and break down these mushroom polysaccharides. So then what happens through this process? Gut microbes will convert inert mushroom polysaccharides into these energy-rich bioactive metabolites, primarily short-chain fatty acids. So we've heard about this, especially with gut research. We've heard about this with fiber. It's all the rage, and we will talk about it. But essentially, these microbes are cleaving down these mushroom polysaccharides, breaking them down into smaller particles and helping to ferment these particles. And that actually shapes the environment of our gut. So what it's doing is this fermentation process is lowering the pH of the colon from 7 to about 5.5. And it's creating this environment that favors the growth of beneficial bacteria and inhibits pathogens, because specific bacterial strains and families, these phylum, they are active and they're healthy in different pH levels.
So cool. So cool. Tell us about the different short-chain fatty acids that we're creating just by putting mushrooms into our mouth.
So there are 3 main ones that are beneficial. So acetate, propionate, and butyrate. We've heard of butyrate a lot. So let's start with acetate. It is the most abundant. So it's transported to the liver for lipogenesis, and it's metabolized in peripheral tissues, so tissues further away, so like muscle, heart, and brain. And it stimulates this NLRP3 inflammasome, which helps to improve gut barrier integrity. So acetate, it's the most abundant abundant, transported to multiple different places, but really improves the gut barrier. Then there's propionate, so that's the metabolic modulator. This is what helps enhance insulin sensitivity and metabolic homeostasis. So it's lowering liver triglycerides. This is important, right? This is why we say, this is why functional mushrooms can support with cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels, because it's this source of fiber, and it exhibits anti-inflammatory and anti-cholesterol properties. So that's really the thing with this one. Then there's butyrate, which is the colon's guardian. I like that. It's the primary energy source for colonocytes, so colon cells. It is what feeds our colon cells. So important, because those who eat a diet like the standard American diet don't actually get much butyrate, and that's why researchers are postulating that there's a higher risk of colon cancer in the newer generation. So butyrate is crucial for maintaining gut barrier integrity, just like with acetate. And then butyrate also possesses powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-obesity properties. So these are the top three with respect to mushroom polysaccharides.
What I love about that, Dr. Des, is that I see so many ads and different things for taking butyrate. Like people consuming it as an isolated compound. And I love that you just showed people that they do not have to take butyrate. Their body is going to make it. You just have to feed your gut and it will make it for you, and in an amount and in a ratio that's appropriate for you. So if you've been hearing the word butyrate and you didn't know what it was, now you know what it is. It's a short chain fatty acid that your body is making for you to do all of these incredible things. Most importantly, maintaining that gut barrier integrity, or in other words, healing your leaky gut, if you think that might be a root cause of whatever you're managing. So let's look at some evidence in action. Let's look at the reishi mushroom. So one of the mushrooms that we can link to a healthy gut. And reishi, we know, has a legacy of use. It is known as Ganoderma lucidum. That's the Latin name. It's been used in traditional medicine for millennia to promote both health and longevity. And when we look at it in relation to microbiota modulation, we see evidence of it being able to help combat obesity. And here's how. When we look at a water extract of the reishi mushroom, they were shown to reduce weight gain, fat mass, and inflammation in high-fat diet mice by modulating the gut flora. So there are a few good studies out there where they would induce diabetes or obesity or all kinds of metabolic diseases in mice, and then they would offer them an extract of the reishi mushroom, and in all of the cases, we saw this weight loss, fat mass loss, and less inflammation. So we can go back and look at all of those studies to see why it's working. So it's not reishi directly makes you lose weight, but there's this cascade of things that happen when you consume something like reishi that lead to that in the end. We know that the consumption of reishi in research has shown a boost in beneficial bacteria, like we just saw, significantly enhances the abundance of many species of beneficial, the good bugs, the good bacteria that we want to have. So again, we don't have to take a probiotic to be adding a bunch of things. Many probiotics available on the market, we now know, are not even making it to the colon. They can't make it through the stomach and small intestine to even get there. Where when we consume mushrooms, we know that they can last and then become the food to enhance the colony you already have, the native bacteria you already have got there. We see that they balance key phyla, so they can reduce the ratio of things in your gut that help to be a key marker for a leaner gut profile when we have less of them, and of course, increasing the short-chain fatty acid production. And we see this in all kinds of models showing an increase of acetate and butyrate when we introduced reishi specifically. So these changes are linked to reduced lipopolysaccharide concentrations and an inhibition of the inflammatory marker TLR4 pathway in the liver. And this is directly counteracting the effects of dysbiosis. So that's, if you're someone who's taking reishi mushroom and you were taking it for sleep, or you were taking it for stress or nervous system regulation, a healthier gut is an amazing side effect, an amazing other thing you didn't know maybe that was happening, but we see so much research proving that reishi can be linked to better gut health. And other mushrooms, when we look at broadening the evidence, we see two other mushrooms in research around gut health, and they're cordyceps and then porcini mushrooms, which we'll talk about in a minute. So cordyceps, we often think of cordyceps mushrooms being used for energy, for endurance, for stamina, even for sexual or reproductive health, because there are so many links to increased libido and sperm quality and all of that. But we don't often think of cordyceps in gut health. But here we see that Cordyceps militaris can target HFD. So polysaccharides from Cordyceps militaris can prevent obesity, again, in high-fat diet mice by modulating gut microbiota and their metabolites. We see a shift in bacterial populations with cordyceps, increasing the proportion of various bacteria in the gut and boosting the beneficial genre like Bifidobacterium, which we hear about so many people just taking a probiotic, including Bifidobacterium, because it's in so much research, where here we're showing consuming cordyceps can just help you to increase the proportion of the good ones that you already have. And then the barrier function effect. So we see Cordyceps militaris enhancing intestinal barrier function, and this is physical, biochemical, and immunological, and this was done in research in pig models who have a very similar gut profile to us. When we looked at the research on porcini, I just love it because if you are Italian or have Italian friends or family, you know that they're eating porcini mushroom as a part of their diet. And Dr. Des, you and I have looked at epidemiological research in the past, looking at large communities, and we see the Italian population having one of the longest, their longevity is the best of many of the nations on the planet due to their mushroom consumption, we believe. They just live longer. And it's likely because they eat more mushrooms, and the porcini mushroom being one of the most incredible for its compounds. Yet, here in Canada, we still don't recognize it as a medicinal mushroom. So for now, we can eat it. And we see in the porcini that it's fermentable by the human microbiota. So in vitro studies, they showed that its polysaccharides were readily fermented by microbiota from both lean and obese individuals, with significant increases, again, in short-chain fatty acid synthesis. It promotes lactic acid bacteria. So this gives an increase to this good beneficial bacteria in the gut. And we have metabolic benefits. So again, in animal models of type 2 diabetes, we saw that the polysaccharides of porcini mushrooms led to us having these oxidative stress in the liver being less. So great examples of mushrooms that we've all heard of. Many of you are probably already eating or taking, and the great benefits in the gut by consuming them.
Okay, I want to talk about mushroom-derived microRNAs because this is it's considered the next frontier in research, and it goes beyond polysaccharides, which we've talked about, because recent research has uncovered these hidden nutrients in mushrooms called microRNAs, which are a class of small non-coding RNA molecules. And so they think that these are enlightening us to this cross-kingdom communication. So these mushroom-derived microRNAs may be absorbed by the host and regulate human gene expression directly. So this represents a new frontier. And when we look at protection and delivery, so like plant microRNAs, fungal microRNAs are packaged in exosome-like nanoparticles. And these vesicles protect them from the harsh environment of the digestive tract because of that pH differential, allowing them to reach their targets further along in the gastrointestinal tract. So when we think of this multi-target effect, it raises the possibility that microRNAs could work synergistically with other bioactive compounds to enhance therapeutic benefits, which explains why whole food extracts are more often effective than isolated supplements. So taking a dual extracted lion's mane extract from the fruiting body as opposed to just ergothioneine or,
Right.
just specific ones, because they all work together in synergy.
Yeah, we see that showing up so often. I know that we were just reading some research about cordyceps as well. And when they used the whole cordyceps fruiting body part of the mushroom called the stroma in that species, we saw these incredible effects. And we were specifically looking at reproductive health there. And when they took the molecule cordycepin, which is believed to be part of what's making the cordyceps do its great work, isolated alone, the cordycepin actually had the opposite effect. So I love that this is just more proof that they're better together and as whole foods. When we extract it, we're not extracting out one molecule and just giving you just beta-glucans or just ergothioneine, but there are hundreds of compounds in that extracted powder that's being put into the capsule or into a blend for you so that you're getting all of the things Mother Nature created as this entourage effect. We know that they are helping each other out. So instead of one isolated compound, like taking vitamin C out of an orange, we know we're leaving things behind that Mother Nature meant for you to have together. I just love that our product allows us to get everything, even if we don't have the science to measure all of it yet.
Okay, so I love that, and I want to talk about evidence for this new mechanism because it talks about these nanoparticles and shiitake and inflammation. So inflammation is a big indication of disease and can lead to disease down the line. But there was this groundbreaking study which talked about exosome-like nanoparticles extracted from shiitake mushrooms and how they were tested in a mouse model of acute liver injury. So these mice, they had an acute liver injury and they were given these exosome-like nanoparticles from shiitake. So they found that these mushroom-derived exosome-like nanoparticles, that's a mouthful, demonstrated a significant hepatic protective effect, so protective of the liver. They stopped the secretion of anti-inflammatory cytokines and reduced the expression of the NLRP3 inflammasome. So they really helped with this inflammation piece to be anti-inflammatory, essentially. And crucially, the authors noted that this effect was not due to lentinin, which is the well-known polysaccharide from shiitake. It was actually from everything. It provides strong evidence that other bioactive molecules within these exosome-like nanoparticles, likely microRNAs, are responsible for this gene-regulating effect. So again, just like Brandi and I said, it's not this one particular thing. It's this entourage effect, this synergy. And this research really opens the door to exploring mushroom microRNAs as this new class of therapeutics for inflammation-related diseases. So I thought this was fascinating, and it's cool to see where this research goes in the coming years.
Yeah, I think we're going to see incredible things. So let's wrap it all up. Let's bring it all together. What we are explaining to you is that there is some engineering we can do in the microbiome. And when we use the power of the fungal kingdom, like I believe we were meant to, we can have really powerful effects. So the gut microbiome is central to our health. However, modern diets, like Dr. Desiree said, the standard American diet can disrupt its balance. And this is driving us toward metabolic disease. Edible or medicinal mushrooms offer a unique prebiotic toolkit for us. They're indigestible polysaccharides, mushroom polysaccharides, selectively nourish beneficial bacteria for us. And this microbial fermentation produces short-chain fatty acids. These are powerful metabolites that strengthen the gut barrier. They reduce inflammation in the body, and they help to regulate metabolism. Hello, who does not want those three things today? A healthy gut barrier, less inflammation, and a regulated metabolism. I think we're all after those things, really showing us the power of these mushrooms. And then when we look to the future, what's going to happen next? Where are we going? These mushrooms have been around forever. And we see proof that they're not going anywhere. The research is just getting better. So the new frontier of cross-kingdom communication, I love that so much, is emerging, where we see mushroom-derived microRNAs showing potential to directly regulate host genes. So that's so exciting for me. We are not that different, right? We are part of nature, just like mushrooms are part of nature. We actually share quite a bit of our DNA with mushrooms. So the big idea at the end is that by providing both fuel, so the polysaccharides we get from mushrooms, and information, these would be the microRNAs from mushrooms, these powerful fungi are agents for engineering a resilient and a healthy gut ecosystem for us. So however you want to take your mushrooms, whether you're taking them in a capsule, you're eating them as part of your dinner, you're taking a powdered extract and stirring it into your matcha or your tea or your coffee, putting it into your smoothie, know that you are doing your gut a big favor when you are adding them. And it doesn't take that much of them to get a good benefit, but we do know we need to use them consistently because your community of microbes in your gut They need to eat just like you do. So we always want to be feeding them the food that they need to stay healthy and to stay in balance. And with that, we'll leave you with a little favorite quote of ours: the best investment that you can make is in your gut. So much research coming out now to show us that all health begins in the gut. And it makes sense. We all have to eat to stay alive. So be mindful when you're eating. Think about what you're putting in your mouth. Pause and think and be mindful with your food. And try your best to include more mushrooms when you can, whether it's taking a supplement because you really can't stand the taste or the texture of them, or including them in more of your meals. So many benefits to come from them. Gut health is just the beginning. We hope that you learned something new here today. If anyone you know could benefit from what we shared in this episode, please share it with them. And if you're interested in adding mushrooms to your life, then you can use code PODCAST15 to save 15% on your entire order at EversioWellness.com.
If you haven't yet left us a rating and review, subscribed to this podcast, or followed our social media accounts listed in the show notes, we would so appreciate that. And if you're not sure where to start, you can take our Mushroom Wellness quiz. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with us. Until next time, be well.